So with Title V, given that every theory has its limitations, we need to retain a multiplicity of theories to understand the world. Important command term here is the notion of to discuss. So discussion really does represent more than one viewpoint, and it doesn't necessarily mean to result that one viewpoint is, that a single viewpoint is the most, is more reasonable than any other viewpoint, but rather an exploration of different viewpoints and positioning of them alongside with or in contrast to each other. So this is the notion of discussion, and discussion doesn't need to result in a single viewpoint being the one that is argued as being the right one or the most true. Okay, so I have that in the background, and with this particular title, I would suggest that research is really going to be key, because you've got these notions of theory and multiple theories and understanding and the world. So each of these terms really sits within bodies of research about scientific thinking, about logical thinking, about the scientific method, about theory as opposed to opinion as well. So you're going to need to have research into different theories and have examples of different theories. So you want to be careful of using well-worn and overused examples in this case. You know, the theory of relativity or evolutionary theory. And there's a number of revisionist theory, and there's a number of theories like this in each of the areas of knowledge which have been cited over and over again. There is a defense for that students are coming against these theories for the first time in their lives, and that examiners have been, doing this in some cases for decades, and so they've seen these again and again. Should students be punished for that, or should essays be regarded as lesser because they're using theories that examiners have seen over and over again? There is an argument there. But there's also another sense in which, we're in 2019, students are dealing with subject matter that examiners did not study while we were at high school, and, theories in quantum mechanics, in physics, and, new theories of the media and social media and new technologies that have entered within the last decade, which examiners have not seen before. And those are the ones that are interesting for examiners, ones that might get us to, oh, gee, what's this about? Let me go and find out about that. That's kind of interesting for examiners and looks and makes the essay shine in nice ways. So that's another point. You can be using those kind of well-worn theories, but use them well. If you're going to cite evolutionary theory, then make sure that you're accurate in your citation of it. Einstein's theory of relativity, make sure that you've got some research backup quotation and you understand the actual theory. Because if you cite a well-worn theory and make an error, then it really diminishes the value of your essay in an examiner's eyes. Okay, so theory, how are you going to define that as a key term? It's very much connected to reason and deductive reasoning in particular, and it's very much connected to the relationship between, and you're going to need to define each of these terms in a way or explain their relationship in a way. So, what's the relationship to fact and evidence? What counts as evidence in the formation of theories, and how does new evidence, or when we think about what the claim in the title is, that we need to have a multiplicity of theories, how does evidence interact with that? So, and then this notion that every theory has its limitations. Well, what are the limitations? Are the limitations in what we consider to be a fact, other limitations in how we define evidence or what counts as evidence, or with the rise of new technologies or new methods, we have then got the availability of new evidence, and then that's going to have an effect on theory. So is there a point in time where a scientific understanding is shut down because that's it, we've got it now, and there's no need to have any more multiple theories? Or is there, or do we, and then depending on what aspect of the world we're talking about, do we always have to keep the possibility of one or other theory being more valid? Do we always need to keep that possibility open because new evidence might emerge? So there's going to be some understandings of the world, however we define this, which are going to require us to hold or retain multiple theories on the table at the same time until we get new evidence to narrow down to a more limited set of theories, or to a single theory by itself. There's an interesting discussion inside physics about about the notion of a theory of everything, a theory of everything. Does that mean a single theory, a unitary theory, a unified theory, or does it mean a composite of theories? And in that composite or complex of theories, then we have an integration. Does that integration also count as the notion of a single theory? Or is it, because it is a complex, is it multiple theories? So this kind of discussion and definition is something that you could use as the backdrop for the essay. This notion of understanding the world, what does it mean to understand? That understanding could be defined, and also the world needs to be defined. Do we mean the world as in the whole world, lots of things in the world? In which case we are going to need multiple theories. That's obvious, right? If you're trying to understand the world as a massive, complicated system, then you're going to need a number of different theories to understand and explain that system and how it works. Or even a complex of interacting systems. Or are you going to define the world in the context of your essay? You're going to define the world in terms of a single issue, or a single event, or a single observation, a single aspect of study, a single item of study, or subject matter inside the knowledge framework. Do you choose a single subject, and are you going to use that selection as representative of what the title is saying to mean the world? Okay, so you're going to need to explain what are you talking about when you want to talk about understanding the world. And then also, what does it mean to understand? To what extent do we need to understand something before we actually understand it? At which point can we say that we actually understand something? Does it mean that we need to understand the terminology, that we understand the concepts, that we understand the methodology for arriving at, in trying to understand the world? Do we have to understand the methodology of understanding the world as well? Or is it fine enough just to understand the subject matter? And then how do we know that we understand something? Where are our limits? Where are our blind spots? Can we ever say that we fully understand something? So, and then, you could discuss that particular knowledge question and then say, well, we can't ever fully say that we fully understand something, and therefore we need to have multiple theories available. And it's never possible to shut down and narrow down to a single theory because we don't even know if we fully understand something or not. So you're going to need to you're going to need to wrangle through that, I would think. What else have we got here? Is there a difference between theory and opinion? Now this is the notion, then this is sort of going back to this idea here about we need. And who's the we? in this? Is it experts in a particular area of knowledge? Well, then yes, because in this title we are talking about areas of knowledge. We're not talking about popular opinion, right? So maybe it's worth stating that, or maybe you can just leave that unsaid. What are the qualities of a successful theory? Could be a KQ here. What counts? When does a theory become successful? When is it? How are you going to define the notion of a successful theory? Because this is connected to this notion of here, every theory has its limitations. Does that mean that we discount theories because they've got limitations? And you know, to some extent, is this assumption even true? Do you want to challenge this part of the title? It is and here, you know, you could possibly, or you could do it a little bit. You need to be very careful though, because the title is giving it as being, it's worded as an assumption. You need to take this as an assumption of the title. And if you do try to challenge it, you are putting yourself in danger. The title has asked you to assume it. So if you did want to challenge that every theory has its limitations, you need to be very careful about how you do it. Okay, so let's have a quick look at my notes here. It's required by the title, given that, so it would probably not be a wise strategy in the context of this particular way to challenge it. Also, given that implies that you do not need to spend much time supporting the assumption. Yeah, so be careful. Don't waste too many word count on saying that, yeah, every theory has its limitations. You know, possibly in the introduction, you could defend it quickly, you could support it quickly, and use that as your hook, possibly, or the background information inside the introductory section. Could be something along the lines, it could be leading to this assumption. So this assumption is a conclusion in the introduction of the essay. Right. Now, every theory has its limitations. So can you imagine writing the introduction like this? Therefore, every theory has its limitations. All right. So what is the therefore coming from? Well, in the hook of the essay, in the hook of the introduction, and that background knowledge section, or context, then you could quickly have a look. You could start out with an interesting example, which demonstrates that there are limitations to theory, and then say that that the limitations in this sense, in the sense of this example that's being used, are, you know, across all theories. You know, can you really reach that level of a conclusion? The title, the claim is saying that that all theory has its limitations. So how are you going to define limitations? You're going to really need to get into doing some research as what theory is, you know, and I think in that research you will find the answer to what I'm talking about here. I hope all of that made sense. Anyway, maybe you could come up with support affirming the assumption to set up a context or stimulate inquiry into the next part of the title. That would be a strategy. So, I mean, everything I just said, maybe you don't need to do any of that at all, but it could be a strategy that you would use in the construction of your essay. I think if I was writing this essay, I would try that and I would see what it looked like, and then then I would be trying a bunch of other strategy and keep, writing sections to the essay, and then at the end, when I've got 2,000 or 3,000 words, then I would say, okay, which sections do I need, which ones are not really working out so well, and then I would be deleting those sections. And that's really the art of crafting a 1,600-word essay, is you try something, and you see where it leads you to, and you see if it works. And then at the end, you have a review process of your essay. So you do need to give yourself time. You can't be doing this overnight to be able to edit down to the word count that you need. Okay, I will continue this in part 2.